details. There's a trunk up there. The rusted key from the will reading will open it. Everything you need is inside. I love you. I always have. Gee, I read the note once. Then again. When I finished, I folded it carefully and slipped it into my wallet beside the other note Harold had left, the one mentioning the insurance box. Then I grabbed a flashlight from the truck and walked toward the barn. The structure towered over the farmhouse. 3 stories of weathered red wood, its roof patched in places with sheets of rusted tin. The double doors hung crooked on heavy iron hinges. I grabbed one of them and pulled. The door groaned open like an old man rising slowly from bed. Inside, the air smelled of dry hay and motor oil. Strips of afternoon sunlight filtered through cracks in the wooden siding, casting long beams of gold across the dirt floor. In one corner sat an ancient tractor, its tires flat and engine covered in rust. Along the west wall were stacks of hay bales layered with dust. I moved toward the northwest corner of the barn. Behind the stacked bales, I discovered a narrow wooden ladder, nailed to the wall, disappearing upward into darkness. I climbed. The attic ceiling was low, forcing me to crouch slightly. Cobwebs hung in the corners, and the air carried the dry scent of old wood and forgotten seasons. I swept the beam of my flashlight across the space. Cardboard boxes, a broken wooden chair, and in the far corner, partially hidden beneath a faded canvas tarp, a trunk. I walked over and pulled the tarp aside. The trunk was military-style olive drab metal, reinforced with steel corners. A thick brass padlock held it shut. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the rusted key Helen had given me at the will reading. The key slid into the lock. I turned it. With a heavy click, the padlock opened. I lifted the lid. Inside were 4 folders stacked neatly in a row. Each one was labeled in Harold's careful handwriting. Geological Survey. Walter. Evidence marked with a red tab. Victor Hartman. Conspiracy blue tab. Trust documents resting on top of the folders was another envelope. My name was written across the front. My hands trembled as I opened it. Sam, if you're reading this letter, it means I'm gone. And Walter has already tried to take the farm. There are 3 things you need to understand. First, Walter stole $370,000 from us over the past 18 months. He forged my signature on withdrawal slips, moved money through shell accounts, and lied repeatedly to our accountant. The red folder contains the evidence: bank statements, surveillance photographs, forged paperwork. I discovered what he was doing in September 2022. I never confronted him. Instead, I began documenting everything. Second, Walter has been working with a rival oil executive since September 2021. Together, they plan to force you into a nursing facility, obtain control of the farm through a fraudulent guardianship petition, and then sell the land for drilling rights. The blue folder contains their emails, contracts, and wire transfers. Everything you will need to expose them. Third, this land sits directly above a Mississippian lime shale formation. Geological surveys estimate roughly $25 million in recoverable oil beneath the property. I have already negotiated a partnership agreement with Morrison Energy. They will handle all drilling expenses. You will retain 75% of the net royalties. The estimated income will be between $2 and $3 million per year. The trust documents folder explains everything in detail. I transferred the farm into an irrevocable trust in your name 18 months ago. Walter cannot touch it. No power of attorney, no guardianship order, and no creditor can legally claim it. Section 47, C, contains an ethics clause. If Walter contests the will, commits fraud, or collaborates with certain named individuals, he forfeits his entire inheritance and becomes subject to federal prosecution. Helen has copies of everything. She will help protect you. Sam, I know this hurts. I know you still want to believe Walter is the boy who helped me plant roses in the garden. But he isn't that boy anymore. He made his choices. Do not forgive him. Do not let him manipulate you again. Protect yourself. Protect this land. It's your future now. I love you more than I ever said out loud. Trust the farm. Harold. I read the letter once, then again, and a third time. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the paper down. $370,000, 18 months, forged signatures, shell accounts, all of it happening while Harold was fighting cancer, while she could barely walk across the bedroom without help. I opened the red folder. The first page was a timeline written neatly in Harold's handwriting. Walter Rutherford, embezzlement. Timeline. July 15th, 2021, $45,000 withdrawn from Morrison Energy operating account. Forged signature authorization. Funds transferred to account ending in 7743, Walter personal account. November 3rd, 2021, $85,000. Withdrawn from joint fidelity investment account. Forged power of attorney submitted to bank. Surveillance photo confirms Walter at teller window at 2:47 p.m. May 22nd, 2022, $120,000. Withdrawn from retirement fund. Fraudulent hardship, claim used to bypass penalty. Notarized document signature inconsistent with known samples. January 10th, 2023. $120,000 withdrawn from Morrison Energy executive bonus account. Electronic transfer traced to Walter's home, office IP address. Total stolen, $370,000. Beneath the timeline were supporting documents. Highlighted bank statements. Withdrawal slips carrying Harold's forged signature, the loops too tight, the slant wrong. Security photos from the Fidelity branch, showing Walter standing at the counter in a suit. And a hardship affidavit dated 3 days after Harold received her cancer diagnosis. At the bottom of the folder was a sticky note written in Harold's hand. Discovered September 12th, 2022. Monitored 6 months, documented everything. Let him think he got away with it. Set the trap. G. I closed the folder slowly. My stomach churned. I stood up too quickly and had to grab the edge of the trunk to steady myself. Walter had been stealing from us while Harold lay bedridden, while I was helping her to the bathroom, while I sat beside her at night, reading aloud from her favorite books. He had forged her name, lied to banks, drained our accounts while she was dying, and Harold had known. She had watched it happen, quietly documenting every transaction, every lie, every crime, building a case so airtight he wouldn't be able to escape it. I thought about the will reading, Walter sitting across from me, barely paying attention, checking his phone. I thought about the $50,000 offer, the $25,000 check I tore apart this morning. He hadn't been generous. He had been desperate. I sank down onto the attic floor, leaning back against the trunk. The red folder rested in my lap. Outside, a crow cried somewhere in the distance. The wind rattled the barn roof above my head. I whispered quietly into the dusty air, "You're not my son." Then I placed the letter and the red folder carefully back inside the trunk, closed the lid, and climbed down the ladder. Because now I had work to do. March 29th, 6 in the evening. I sat at the small card table inside the farmhouse, the open trunk resting beside me like a silent witness. The red folder still lay where I had placed it moments earlier, heavy with the weight of everything I had just learned. Outside, the sun was beginning to sink behind the distant wheat fields. Long shadows stretched across the land, and the golden light of evening slowly faded into something colder. The temperature had dropped quickly with the sunset. When I exhaled, I could see the faint mist of my breath in the air. For a moment, I simply sat there trying to steady my thoughts. Then I reached into the trunk and pulled out the blue folder. The tab read, Victor Hartman, Conspiracy. Harold's handwriting was sharp and angular, exactly the way it had always looked when she wrote something important. I opened the folder. The first page was a handwritten summary. Harold had dated it October 15th, 2022. Victor Hartman, background competitor in Oklahoma, oil and gas for 20 years. Lost 3 major lease bids to Morrison Energy between 2005 and 2018. Personal grudge. Attempted hostile acquisition of Morrison in 2016. Failed. Known for aggressive tactics, legal gray areas, and purchasing distressed properties at auction. Sam, this man hates me, and now he's using our son to destroy you. First contact with Walter. September 2nd, 2021, 18 months of coordination. Do not underestimate him. Do not negotiate. G. I read the words slowly, feeling the weight of each sentence settle into my chest. Then I turned the page. The next document was a printed email chain. Several lines were highlighted in yellow, with notes scribbled in the margins in Harold's handwriting. From v.hartman@hartmanoilgas.com to walterrutherford.c.pa@... Date September 2nd, 2021, 11:42. p.m. Subject opportunity. Walter, we met briefly at the Tulsa Energy Forum last spring. I've been following your mother's company for years. Impressive operation. I'm reaching out because I believe there may be a business opportunity that benefits both of us. Your parents own an 800-acre parcel in Osage County. Geological data suggests there may be significant untapped reserves on that land. If you're interested in discussing a potential partnership, let's arrange a meeting, discreetly. Victor Hartman, CEO, Hartman Oil and Gas. Harold had circled the word discreetly. Next to it she had written red flag. He knew about the reserves before Walter did. I turned the page. Another email. September 9th, 2021, from Walter Rutherford. CPA at ... 2v. Hartman at hartmanoilgas.com. Victor interested. Parents don't know the land's value. What are you proposing? Harold's note was written in the margin. Walter sold us out in one sentence. My jaw tightened. I continued reading. The next pages were screenshots of text messages printed and stapled together. October 2021. Victor, October 14th. 10:47 p.m. Need geological survey. Can you access your mother's files? Walter, October 14th. 11:03 p.m. She keeps everything locked. I'll try. Victor, October 22nd. 9:15 a.m. Time is money. Find a way. Walter, October 22nd. 10:08 a.m. Working on it. Beneath the printed messages was a bank transfer record. Date November 28th, 2021. Hartman Oil and Gas, LLC to Walter Rutherford. Amount $50,000. Memo line consulting services. Harold had written beneath the record first payment. Walter became a paid informant against his own family. My hands tightened around the folder. I kept reading. The next document was an internal memo from Morrison Energy. It was stamped confidential, and Harold had attached a sticky note to the top. The note read, Geological survey disappeared from my office safe. January 10th, 2022. Only 3 people had the combination, me, Helen, and Walter. I changed the locks the same afternoon. 2 weeks later, Hartman Oil filed lease applications on adjacent parcels. Coincidence number. My chest tightened. I turned another page. This time it was a contract draft. Date February 18th, 2023. The letterhead read, Hartman Oil and Gas. Proposed acquisition agreement. I read every word carefully. Purchase agreement. Stanley Rutherford seller agrees to sell 800 acres located in Section 14, Township 25 North Range, Yar 8 East Osage County, Oklahoma, to Hartman Oil and Gas, LLC buyer for the sum of $500. 000. Seller relinquishes all mineral rights, surface rights, and future royalty claims. Buyer assumes full rights to drilling, exploration, and extraction. Estimated recoverable reserves $25 million. Seller receives no royalty participation. I stared at the numbers for a long time. $500,000. For land containing $25 million in oil. Harold had underlined the royalty clause and written in thick red ink beside it, theft. Below that, she added another note. Industry standard royalties range from 12 to 25%. Morrison Partnership gives you 75%. Victor's contract gives you 0. I slowly turned the page. Another email. Date March 3rd, 2023. Subject line, final offer from V. Hartman at Hartman Oil. Gas.com to Walter Rutherford. CPA at ... Walter. Time to close this. Your mother's condition is declining. Once she's gone, we move quickly. I will pay you $5 million cash, grant you a vice president position at Hartman Oil, and give you 20% net royalties from the Osage parcel once we acquire it. In return, you ensure your father signs over the farm within 90 days of her passing. Use whatever leverage necessary, guardianship, nursing facility, financial pressure. I don't care how. Just get it done. Victor. Below it was Walter's reply. Same day. Victor deal. I've already researched facilities. There's a place in Elk City called Sunset Meadows. $2,800 per month. If Dad resists, I'll file for emergency guardianship. My lawyer says it's a slam dunk given his age and recent loss. I'll have him sign a power of attorney and transfer the farm to me as conservator. Once it's mine, I'll sell to you for the agreed price. Target timeline April to May. Walter. I read the email twice. My hands began to shake. Walter had sold me, sold the farm, sold Harold's life's work, all for $5 million and a corporate title. And he had done it while she was dying. The final document in the folder was another handwritten note from Harold. It was dated September 30th, 2022. Sam, by now you've read the evidence. I know this must be unbearable, but you need to understand something important. I built a legal wall around you. The farm sits inside an irrevocable trust in your name. Walter cannot touch it. The ethics clause in Section 47C of the trust specifically names Victor Hartman. If Walter attempts any transaction with Victor or any company Victor controls, Walter immediately forfeits his inheritance and faces federal fraud charges. Helen has copies. The FBI has copies. It's ironclad. I've also finalized a partnership agreement with Morrison Energy. They will handle all drilling expenses. You receive 75% of all net royalties. Industry standard is between 12% and 25%. 75% is unheard of. I negotiated it because you deserve it. Because this land belongs to you. Victor's contract would have stolen everything. Do not negotiate with him. Do not negotiate with Walter. Let Helen handle it. Trust the people I trusted: Helen Morrison, Energy, and Earl Patterson. You'll meet Earl soon. And Sam, don't forgive Walter. I wanted to. I tried. But some betrayals run too deep. Protect yourself. I love you. Harold. I closed the folder slowly. The farmhouse had grown dark around me. Only the last red glow of the setting sun slipped through the window. For a long time, I sat there in silence, the blue folder resting in my lap, my chest hollow. Harold had fought a war I never even knew existed. While I was sitting beside her bed, reading aloud at night, she had been gathering evidence, building legal traps, negotiating contracts. Protecting me. Protecting this land. Protecting everything Walter and Victor tried to steal. Outside, the wind rose again, rustling the wheat fields. The yellow rose on the porch swayed in the fading light. Somewhere far down the county road, a truck engine rumbled past. I stood slowly. Then I placed the blue folder back inside the trunk beside the red one. Tomorrow, Walter and Victor would come. I could feel it. They would bring their final offer, or their final threat. But this time, I wouldn't be the man they thought I was. This time, I would be ready. March 29th, 7 in the evening. I was still sitting at the small card table inside the farmhouse, staring at the closed trunk beside me, when I heard the sound of boots on the porch steps. Slow, heavy. 3 deliberate knocks followed. I stood across the room and opened the door. A man stood under the weak yellow glow of the porch bulb. He looked to be in his 70s, maybe older. His face was deeply lined, the kind of weathered look you get from decades of sun wind and hard work. He wore a faded flannel shirt, work jeans, and dusty boots. In one hand he carried a metal toolbox. In the other, a brown paper grocery sack. "Sam Rutherford?" he asked. "Yeah," I said cautiously. He gave a short nod. "Name's Earl Patterson. I run the gas station about 5 miles east of here." He jerked his thumb toward the dark road behind him. "Harold asked me to keep an eye on this place. Figured you'd show up tonight." For a moment I just stared at him. Then I stepped aside. "Come in." Earl walked inside without hesitation. He set the toolbox and grocery sack down on the card table where I'd been sitting. From the sack he pulled out a thermos, a foil-wrapped sandwich, and a battery-powered lantern. "No electricity out here," he said matter-of-factly as he set the lantern down. "Well's dry too. Thought you might need a little help getting through the night." He slid the lantern toward me. "Coffee and supper. Lantern should run about 12 hours. "Thank you," I said quietly. Earl studied my face for a moment, as if measuring something. Then he reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "Harold gave me this about 6 months ago," he said. "Told me if you ever showed up here alone, I should hand it over." He placed the envelope on the table, said you'd probably need it. The envelope was thick, sealed. "She paid me to keep an eye on the farm," Earl continued. "Check the fences, run trespassers off if anybody wandered too close. Been doing that ever since she asked." He shrugged slightly. "Nobody's come around here except you." I opened the envelope. Inside were crisp stacks of $100 bills, 200 of them, $20,000. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. "Earl, I don't thank me," he interrupted calmly. "Thank her." He nodded toward the trunk sitting beside the table. "She spent the better part of 2 years getting ready for this." I looked at the trunk again. "I don't know exactly what's in those folders," Earl continued. "But I do know your boy and Victor Hartman have been around town these last 3 days asking questions." My stomach tightened. "What kind of questions?" Mineral Rights Earl said. "Been talking to the county clerk. the assessor's office, even stopped by the drilling commission building down in Pauhuska. He folded his arms across his chest. They're circling. A cold feeling settled in my chest. How do you know all that? Earl gave a faint smile. Small town, he said. Everybody knows everybody's business. He leaned slightly closer. Harold told me if those two showed up asking questions, I was supposed to warn you. He paused. So, consider this your warning. The farmhouse creaked softly in the wind outside. They'll come here, Earl continued. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. His voice lowered. Don't sign anything they hand you. Don't make deals. Helen Sinclair's got your back. He tapped the table once. So do I. I nodded slowly. Harold told you about Helen. Earl chuckled quietly. She told me about a lot of things. Then he lifted the toolbox again. Oh, one more thing. He glanced toward the barn. You should check that attic again. My brow furrowed. Northwest corner, Earl said. Behind the insulation, there's a metal box up there marked insurance. He nodded toward the trunk again. Harold said you'd know what to do with it. He tipped his cap toward me. I'll come back in the morning with some water and a generator. Might take a couple hours to get it running, but we'll make this place livable. He pointed at the thermos. My phone number's written on the bottom of that if you need anything before then. He turned and started toward the door. Earl, I called. He paused and looked back. Thank you. He nodded once. Then he stepped outside and disappeared into the darkness. A few moments later, I heard his pickup truck start. The engine rumbled as he drove slowly down the gravel road. The sound faded into the distance. I stood in the doorway for another minute, listening to the wind moving through the wheat fields. Then I grabbed the flashlight from the table and headed back toward the barn. The attic looked exactly the same as it had earlier that afternoon. Dusty beams, low rafters, old boxes scattered around the corners. I moved to the northwest corner. Behind a sheet of pink fiberglass insulation, just like Earl had said, I found a small metal box. It was tucked tightly between two beams. I pulled it free and brushed away the dust. The word insurance was written across the lid in black marker. I opened it. Inside were photocopies of every document I had already seen in the trunk. The red folder evidence, the blue folder conspiracy files, copies of the trust paperwork. But there was something else. A small USB drive taped to the inside of the lid. A label read, Evidence, FBI copy. Beneath it lay a business card. I picked it up and read the name printed across the front. Special Agent Sarah Thompson, Federal Bureau of